The Long Fuse Chapter 1. Ashes and Silence. The data packet arrived at 0347. Terran standard-timed Oscar Irons was elbow-deep in a Vicati plasma relay when his neural implant chimed. 3 short pulses that meant priority message, civilian channels. He ignored it. The relay had been jury-rigged by some incompetent dock technician who thought cross-threading power couplings was an acceptable shortcut, and if Oscar didn't fix it in the next 20 minutes, the entire cargo bay would depressurize when the freighter jumped to FTL. The Vicati didn't care if humans died. They barely cared if their own died. Chime, 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 Jesus Christ, Oscar muttered, yanking his hand free and wiping coolant gel on his already stained coveralls. His fingers were cramping. 16-hour shifts did that. Especially when you were 53 and your body remembered every battlefield it had crawled across 30 years ago. He blinked twice, activating the message queue. The header made his blood stop. Terran Colonial Authority, Emergency. Broadcast Arcadia System. Multiple incursion civilian casualties estimated. From 7 billion Askar's tool clattered to the deck. Around him, the cargo bay of the Mizeshtar continued its rhythmic hum. Alien workers clicking and chittering in their native tongues. Loader mechs grinding along their tracks. The ever-present smell of ammonia-based atmosphere leaking through faulty seals. None of them knew. None of them cared. He opened the full report with shaking hands. The words blurred together. Orbital bombardment. Coordinated strike. Krathian sovereignty and Zel hegemony joint operation. No warning. Minimal military targets. Population centers vaporized. Arcadia. He'd been to Arcadia once, 28 years ago. A beautiful world. Blue oceans, green continents, cities that sparkled like jewels under a golden sun. Humans had terraformed it over 2 centuries, poured their sweat and dreams into making it a paradise on the edge of the frontier. 4.7 billion people. His daughter had talked about moving there, said the universities were excellent, that the ocean research facilities were cutting edge. He'd told her to wait, to finish her doctorate on Mars first. Thank God. Oscar's knees felt weak. He braced himself against the relay housing, the metal cold against his palm. Around him, the station bustled with indifference. A Vicati overseer scuttled past, mandibles clicking in irritation at seeing a human idle. Work, mammal. Your shift ends in 3 cycles. Oscar didn't move. Couldn't move. The overseer's translator crackled. I said work. Or do you require motivation? Slowly, Oscar raised his eyes. The Vicati, 6-limbed carapaced with too many eyes clustered around its triangular head, took a step back. Something in the human's expression triggered an instinctive prey response. I'm going to my quarters, Oscar said quietly, to process this message. Then I'm going to finish this relay. And then, he paused, his jaw tightening. Then we'll see what happens next. The Vicati's mandibles twitched uncertainly. In 30 years of Terran integration into galactic society, humans had been compliant. Eager to please, desperate to prove themselves worthy of a seat at the table, something in Oscar's voice suggested that era had just ended. Chapter 2. The Senate's Verdict. Galactic Senate convened 6 hours after the Arcadia massacre. The Chamber of Unity, a massive spherical arena capable of holding representatives from 300 species, buzzed with activity. Holographic delegates flickered in their designated zones, while physical representatives occupied the tiered platforms surrounding the central dais. The architecture was deliberately imposing, soaring columns of crystallized starlight, gravity wells that defied physics, acoustic engineering that carried every word to every ear regardless of language or auditory biology. It was designed to make lesser species feel small. Ambassador Elena Castillo stood in the Terran delegation booth, a cramped space barely large enough for 3 humans. Around her, the aliens discussed Arcadia with the casual disinterest of academics debating an historical footnote. The Terran colonies violated the frontier accords, droned the Krathian representative, a massive reptilian creature whose species had held a Senate seat for 4,000 years. They expanded beyond their allocated zones. They extracted resources from protected systems. They refused to submit to routine inspections. Billions dead, Elena said, her voice cutting through the translation matrix. Billions of civilians. And you call this a violation of accords? The chamber didn't even pause. The response was proportionate, the Zell hegemony's delegate clicked, its crystalline form refracting light in cold geometries. Terran aggression required correction. The sovereignty and hegemony acted within established precedent. Precedent? Elena's hands gripped the podium edge hard enough to hurt. You obliterated population centers, schools, hospitals, civilian infrastructure. Infrastructure used to support military expansion. The Krathian interrupted. Your species has demonstrated consistent territorial ambition. This action serves as appropriate deterrent. Around the chamber, delegates nodded their various appendages in agreement. A few species, the Dalnar, the Mishiv collective, remained silent, but none spoke in humanity's defense. Elena felt something crack inside her chest. 30 years of diplomacy, of bowing and scraping, of accepting insults and restrictions, all to earn a place among the civilized species. And now she understood. They had never intended to accept humanity. They had only been waiting for an excuse. We followed your rules, she said, her voice dropping to something dangerous. Every treaty, every accord, every humiliating restriction you placed on us. And yet you still expanded, the Krathian said. You still bred beyond your assigned population caps. You still exhibited the same aggressive tendencies your species has displayed throughout your violent history. Motion to close debate, the Zell delegate announced. Propose formal recognition of sovereignty hegemony action as lawful enforcement of frontier accords. Seconded, came a chorus of voices. Elena watched, numb, as the vote proceeded. Species after species affirmed the motion. Green lights bloomed across the chamber like poison flowers. Motion approved. 247 in favor, 12 against, 41 abstaining. The Krathian representative turned its massive head toward the Terran booth. Your colony's violation has been adjudicated. The matter is closed. We suggest Terran Command allocate resources toward compliance rather than expansion. Elena stood frozen as the Senate moved to the next agenda item, a trade dispute between the Vraxis Consortium and the Plenary Worlds. Around her, the galaxy continued turning, utterly indifferent to human suffering. Her neural implant chimed. A priority message from Earth encrypted with protocols she hadn't seen used since the border wars. She opened it. 3 words. The fuse is lit. Chapter 3. Oscar's Choice, the Ibambroy. Bar on Deck 47 of Tarash Station was called. The spillway, though Oscar had never learned why. It catered to the dregs of galactic society, contract workers, freight haulers, maintenance crews, and the occasional species too poor or too desperate to care about mingling with lesser races. Oscar sat in the corner booth reserved for humans, nursing something the Dalnar bartender swore was close enough to whiskey. It tasted like battery acid and regret. The newsfeed played on hollow screens throughout the bar. Most showed Arcadia burning, cities reduced to glass, orbital habitats tumbling through space like broken toys, refugee ships desperately fleeing the system while Krathian interceptors picked them off like practice targets. The aliens in the bar watched with the same interest they'd show a weather report. Tragic, a Vakati at the next table clicked to its companion. But predictable. Mammals breed too quickly. Expansion was inevitable. Should have accepted their place, the companion agreed. The Senate gave them opportunities. They squandered it with aggression. Oscar's hand tightened around his glass. A shadow fell across his table. He looked up to find a human woman, late 30s, dark skin, eyes that had seen too much. She wore civilian clothes, but her posture screamed military. Oscar Irons? She asked quietly. Who's asking? Someone who knows you served in the border wars. 14th Colonial Marines, Titan's Ghost Company. She slid into the booth across from him. Took a Krathian plasma round through the gut at Kepler Station. 3 reconstructive surgeries. Honorable discharge with full benefits. Oscar studied her. That information is sealed. Not to everyone. She placed a data chip on the table between them. My name doesn't matter. What matters is this: in approximately 14 hours, everything changes. What are you talking about? The woman leaned forward. Around them, the bar's noise provided cover, but she kept her voice low. Arcadia wasn't an isolated incident. It was a test. The Senate wanted to see if humanity would accept genocide as proportionate response. Guess what? We failed their test. I already figured that out, Oscar said bitterly. No, you don't understand. Her eyes locked onto his. We failed in the way they didn't expect. President Reyes addresses the UEC in 12 hours. And when he does, this station, this entire sector, becomes enemy territory. Oscar felt his pulse quicken. What are you saying? I'm saying you need to decide right now whether you're staying here or leaving. Because when the clock runs out, the Terran Unified Command is going to remind the galaxy what happens when you push humans too far. She tapped the data chip. Dock 23C, Freighter Calypso's Drift. Captain's name is Rodriguez. She's leaving in 10 hours heading for human space. This chip will get you aboard, no questions asked. And if I stay? The woman's expression was grim. Then you're behind enemy lines when the shooting starts. And trust me, Mr. Irons, there's going to be a lot of shooting. She stood, straightening her jacket. Your choice. But make it fast. The galaxy's about to learn that humanity keeps very detailed grudges. She walked away, disappearing into the crowd of alien workers and contractors. Oscar sat alone, staring at the data chip on the nearest holoscreen. Arcadia's orbital habitats continued burning. He picked up the chip, closed his fist around it, and felt something old and cold wake up inside his chest. Something that had been sleeping since Kepler Station. Since 3 surgeries and a discharge that said he was too broken to fight. They'd been wrong. He wasn't broken. He'd just been waiting. Oscar stood, left payment for the drink, and headed for Dock 23C. Behind him, the galaxy celebrated humanity's humiliation, completely unaware that the bill was about to come due, with interest. The Storm Breaks, Chapter 4. The President's Address. The presidential palace on Earth had stood for 200 years, a monument to humanity's unity forged in the fires of the colony wars. Tonight, its halls were silent except for the measured footsteps of President Arthur Reyes as he walked toward the Global Assembly Chamber. He was flanked by his security detail, but they were unnecessary. Every human on Earth, every human in the solar system was watching, waiting. Fleet Admiral Sarah Chen fell into step beside him. The fleet commanders are standing by, Mr. President. All vessels are at their rally points. We're ready. Ready, Reyes repeated, the word tasting like ash. He'd spent 20 years in politics working to avoid this moment. 20 years of compromise, negotiation, of swallowing insults and accepting restrictions, all in the hope that humanity could find its place in the galactic community through peace. Arcadia had ended that dream with nuclear fire. How many? He asked quietly. Chen knew what he meant. Current estimates 4.83 billion confirmed dead. Another 200 million unaccounted for, presumed vaporized in the initial strikes. 73 orbital habitats destroyed. Refugee fleet carrying 16 million intercepted and destroyed while fleeing the system. Reyes stopped walking. His security detail halted with practiced precision, giving him space. 16 million refugees. Unarmed civilian ships running for their lives cut down like animals. The Senate's vote? He asked. 247 in favor of declaring the massacre lawful enforcement. Elena transmitted the full recording. The Krathians are already claiming it as a military victory. Their propaganda networks are calling it the Terran correction. Something dark and cold settled over Reyes like a familiar coat. He'd been a Marine before entering politics, had seen combat on 3 colonial worlds before humanity's integration into galactic society. He'd killed enemy combatants, watched friends die, made impossible choices in impossible situations. But he'd never ordered what he was about to order. Any word from Ambassador Castillo? She's already evacuated from the Senate station, aboard the Defiance with the rest of our diplomatic corps. She said, Chen paused. She said, to quote Winston Churchill, "You were given the choice between war and dishonor. You chose dishonor and you will have war." Reyes allowed himself a grim smile. She always did have a gift for the dramatic. He resumed walking. What's the status of our civilians in alien space? Operation Shepherd is 93% complete. We've extracted most of our people from major stations and population centers. The remaining 7% either refused evacuation or couldn't be reached in time. 7%. Roughly 200,000 humans scattered across a galaxy that had just declared open season on their species. They'll be killed, Reyes said. Probably, Chen agreed, but staying dark any longer risks the entire operation. The Krathians are already suspicious about the increase in freight traffic from their stations. They reached the massive doors of the assembly chamber. Beyond them, the representatives of every Terran nation, colony, and habitat waited. Behind them, 60 billion humans held their collective breath. Reyes straightened his uniform jacket, not the civilian attire of a president, but the dress blues of a Marine general. Tonight he wasn't a politician. Tonight he was a wartime commander. "Send the final authorization code to Fleet Command," he said. "Operation Hellfire is authorized." "Execute on my signal," Chen saluted. "Sir, once you give that speech, there's no going back. The galaxy will unite against us." "Admiral," Reyes said quietly. "The galaxy united against us the moment they applauded our genocide. We're just making it official." The doors opened. President Arthur Reyes walked into history. Chapter 5. The Speech That Shattered Stars. The chamber was packed. Every seat filled, every screen active, every translator calibrated. The gallery held representatives from Earth's nations, but this wasn't a moment for individual governments. This was humanity speaking with one voice. Reyes took the podium. The assembly fell silent. He looked directly into the camera array that would broadcast his words to every human world. Station, ship, and outpost across 37 star systems. "My fellow humans," he began, his voice steady despite the weight of what he carried. 6 days ago, the Krathian Sovereignty and Zell Hegemony launched a coordinated assault on the Arcadia colony system. 4.8 billion civilians were killed in orbital bombardment. 200 million more were vaporized in strikes against population centers. 73 orbital habitats were destroyed. When 16 million refugees attempted to flee, they were hunted down and slaughtered. Silence. Perfect, terrible silence. Today, the Galactic Senate voted to declare this genocide lawful. 247 species we have traded with, negotiated with, sought acceptance from, voted to approve the murder of nearly 5 billion human beings. His hands gripped the podium edges. For 30 years, we have played by their rules. We accepted population caps. We accepted restricted expansion zones. We accepted technology limitations. We accepted trade restrictions that crippled our economy. We accepted being treated as second-class citizens, as primitives, as lesser, because we believed that patience and diplomacy would eventually earn us a place among the stars. His voice hardened. Arcadia has shown us the truth. There was never going to be acceptance. There was only tolerance, and that tolerance lasted exactly as long as we remained weak and compliant. Reyes looked directly into the camera. The galaxy has made its choice. They have declared that human life has no value, that our children, our families, our futures can be erased with impunity, that we exist only at their sufferance to be culled whenever they deem us inconvenient. He paused, letting the words sink in. They have made a grave miscalculation. Behind him, the massive display screens activated. Star charts bloomed across them. Not the limited 37 systems humanity officially controlled, but hundreds of systems spreading across 3 galactic arms. For 30 years, they believed they knew humanity's capabilities. They were wrong. While we smiled and bowed and accepted their restrictions, we were building. While they congratulated themselves on keeping the aggressive mammals contained, we were expanding. While they underestimated us, we were preparing. The star charts pulsed with new markers. Fleets, stations, shipyards, weapons platforms. Operation Hellfire is now active. As I speak, Terran Unified Command has mobilized 17 battle fleets comprising 4,200 capital ships. 600 million personnel across all branches of service are moving to forward positions. Our shipyards, not the ones they know about, but the ones we built in systems they never bothered to fully chart, are operating at full capacity. Gasps rippled through the assembly. Even the representatives were seeing this for the first time. The Krathian Sovereignty will answer for Arcadia. The Zell Hegemony will answer for Arcadia. And every species that voted to legitimize genocide will learn that humanity does not forgive, does not forget, and does not kneel. Reyes's voice dropped to something cold and final. They wanted to see human aggression. They wanted to see our violent nature. They wanted to confirm their prejudices about our primitive species. He leaned forward. Or nothing. See, about 5 minutes ago, I received a priority transmission from Terran Command. You know what it said? It said that as of 1500 hours Terran Standard, this station and every species that condoned Arcadia is now considered hostile territory. It said that I am authorized to depart by any means necessary. And it said, she paused for effect, that if you try to stop me, help is approximately 4 minutes out. Silence on the comm. Then, you are bluffing. Terran forces are contained in their home systems. You have no military presence in this sector. Well, Rodriguez said cheerfully. I guess we're about to find out who's bluffing. Engaging engines. Drift out. The freighter shuddered as maneuvering thrusters fired, pushing them away from the dock. Through the porthole, Oscar saw station defense platforms beginning to track their movement. Weapons charging. This is your final warning. Human vessel. Space tore open. It happened so fast Oscar almost missed it. Reality simply folded. And suddenly 6 ships materialized between the drift and the station. Not freighters. Not civilian craft. Terran Unified Command destroyers. Each one bristling with weapons. Their hulls painted with the blue and white of Earth. Their IFF transponders broadcasting a simple message. 2C Escort Squadron Gamma 7 stand clear. The station's weapons platform stopped tracking. Oscar realized he'd been holding his breath. Captain Rodriguez, the retribution continued. You are clear for departure. Welcome home. TUC Escort will accompany you to the border. Any questions? Rodriguez's voice was thick with emotion. No questions, Retribution, just thank you. Ma'am, it's our honor. All human vessels in alien space, you weren't abandoned. You were never abandoned. Now let's get you home. The drift and its escort accelerated away from Teresh Station, leaving stunned silence in their wake. Oscar watched the station recede through the porthole, watched the alien vessels maintain their distance, watched the destroyers form a protective formation around the freighter like predators guarding their pack. 30 years of being small, of being careful, of accepting that humanity was the weakest species in a dangerous galaxy. That era was over. Through the bulkhead, he heard other passengers, humans he didn't know, from a dozen different worlds and stations, beginning to cry. Not from fear, from relief, from pride, from the sudden understanding that they weren't alone anymore, weren't abandoned, weren't forgotten. Earth had come for them, and Earth had brought warships. Oscar leaned back in his crash couch, closed his eyes, and for the first time in 6 days, allowed himself to feel something other than grief. Vengeance was coming, and it wore the colors of home.